Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. Co-main event, Anthony Smith versus Johnny Walker. This is a fight between two guys that are potent finishers, and when they lose, they're usually getting finished as well. Johnny Walker's a knockout artist. 20 wins, 16 of them by knockout, 3 submissions, just 1 decision. Anthony Smith is more versatile. 36 wins. He's got 19 knockouts, 14 submissions, and just 2 decisions. And the other one, if you're keeping count, must be a DQ or something. I don't know. And it definitely wasn't a DQ against Jon Jones, in which he could have taken the DQ and won the title. I don't know why he didn't fucking do that. I bet on him, and I was kind of hoping he'd be a dishonorable scumbag, but turns out he's got other plans. Either way, I do like Anthony Smith. I do think he's an honorable guy. But he, much like Johnny Walker, has been finished plenty. I do think these guys are both, in general, more vulnerable fighters. He's got 17 losses, 10 of them by knockout, 4 by submission, 3 by decision. Now, he hasn't been submitted in over a decade. That was the last one comes to Josh Neer. And even the ones before that were against Roger Gracie and Antonio Braganetto or whatever in the fucking UFC. He has since avenged the Josh Neer loss actually by submission, but he's never been submitted again since then. And he's gotten some nice subs along the way. Volkan Oezdemir, Alexander Gustafsson, some of his biggest victories. Smith, I should mention, anytime I talk about him, I'm very impressed with how his career's gone. Very impressed. He reached the heights almost. He lost the decision to Jon Jones, but headlining UFC events and strangling some of the greatest light heavyweights, just something I never expected from Anthony Smith. And he could make that happen here against Johnny Walker. But Johnny Walker is a problem in a whole nother way that Jon Jones and Gustafsson are not. Johnny Walker is the most dangerous guy maybe that Anthony Smith has ever fought. Don't hold me to that. He's got over 50 fights. But as far as overall knockout threat goes, Johnny Walker's up there, certainly. He's gigantic, 6'6" or whatever. I don't know. I never write down their heights. I just write down the differential. Johnny Walker's got 2 inches of height, 6 inches of reach. Yeah, that's right. I don't print up Tapology and Sherdog shit. I just write shit down. But Johnny Walker, let's get into his record. He's got 16, his losses here. I already went through his wins. His losses, he's got 4 losses by knockout out of his 7 losses. 1 by submission, 2 by decision. The submission loss is to Klidson Abreu, former UFC fighter and a very good jiu-jitsu guy. And the 2 decision losses are to Nikita Krylov and Thiago Santos, both in the UFC. I still don't know how either one of those went to a decision, let alone a 5-round decision. Seemed fucking impossible on paper. And the 4 knockout losses are to Jamal Hill and Corey Anderson in the UFC. And then Wagner Prado finished him earlier on. And he also has this one other loss before he came to the UFC from Henrique Silva de Lopez or something. I don't know. The guy Henrique, though, knocked him out pretty much like 4 times in that fight. He knocked him down, really. But, it wasn't a good look. It looked like Czech Congo versus Pat Barry with no comeback and just more knockouts. It definitely wasn't good for his brain. But yeah, he's been knocked out a bunch. I'd say between the 2 of these guys, that's the biggest weakness in this fight. Johnny Walker's chin. That's definitely the biggest weakness. But I can't say whether or not I'd say Anthony Smith is more likely to knock Johnny Walker out than vice versa. I think in general the chin dictates who's going to get knocked out first. But you have to always weigh the chin versus the power. And Anthony Smith wins the chin battle, but Johnny Walker wins the power battle. Probably by a much bigger margin. Especially when he's throwing his wild shit. Johnny Walker's got violent finishes in every one of his wins, aside from Iwan Cutelaba, he strangled in round 1. But Paul Craig knocked him out, Ryan Spann, similar knockouts for those guys. Misha Serkinov, Justin Ledet, Khalil Roundtree, that's definitely his finest moment yet. That was such a beautiful knockout. I think Johnny Walker is absolutely one of the top contenders to knock Anthony Smith out or anybody out. And Anthony Smith, he's got to return fire. I don't know if Anthony Smith is going to be able to implement his wrestling here and suck the life out of Johnny Walker on the ground. He was able to do that with Volkan Oezdemir and Alexander Gustafsson, but in both those fights, he had to wear down the light heavyweight. And here, I think he's going to have a tough time wearing down Johnny Walker. He's going to have to find his chin, in my opinion. I think he's going to be forced into a stand-up fight. And even fighting on the outside with Johnny Walker, not that Johnny Walker's the most refined fighter, but he's big, tall, and strong. And Anthony Smith, he's the guy getting his leg injured more recently. So I just think in general, Johnny Walker could get Anthony Smith out of there. And you know what? Gun to my head, that's my prediction. I'm going with Johnny Walker winning by knockout. I think he's going to get it done early. Of course, Anthony Smith could get Johnny Walker out of there early. So that's why my only real bet is the under. Under 1.5 rounds, minus 145. That's my only bet. These guys are even money. If I felt strongly about Johnny Walker or Smith, I would bet on their money lines because it's a juicier line than the under. But I think the under is the most appealing because I think something's going to give in this fight. And when something gives, usually happens early with these guys. Well, with Johnny Walker anyway. Smith could knock him out if he does get the round 1 knockout, which is the only prop I've played. It's plus 650. But again, that's just a bet against Johnny Walker's chin. And I guess Anthony Smith being forced to find it early because he doesn't want to sit there and get chewed up on the outside or something. So that's how I see this fight going. I think it'll go down early. I'm going with Johnny Walker by first round knockout, which if you were so inclined to play that, you could play that at plus 250 or whatever. It wasn't worth it for me. I'd rather just play sprinkle the under on Anthony Smith and play the under, or sprinkle round 1 for Anthony Smith and play the under for this fight altogether. We'll see what happens. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.